Do you want to know how to parent a child who doesn't listen? You are not alone. This can be a very common parenting problem. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication, as well as child development and how to build strong family bonds all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we are talking about getting them to listen. In this video, we're going to be talking about why they may choose not to listen to you, because sometimes it is a choice, and then what you can do to help them choose to listen. It does sometimes take some training. I have raised 4 children of my own. I'm now a grandmother watching my children raise their children, and I've also been a foster parent. I've done therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens. For many years, I did that, and I will tell you that there is no specific type of person that is better at listening than another. Sometimes children just lose focus. Sometimes they get distracted. Sometimes they're lazy, and so they don't want to hear something else. They just want to hear the thoughts in their own head. Sometimes they're having a really exciting inner dialogue. They're imagining, thinking, problem solving, creating inside their minds. So listening to the outside world seems boring and maybe less important. Sometimes children are controlling when they don't listen. Some parents think when a child doesn't follow through, that means they didn't listen. Sometimes the child hears the parent loud and clear. They're just too lazy to actually do the follow through. So when you're talking about your child not listening, are you talking about your child not following through? Because that could be a following instructions problem. Or are you suggesting that they really truly are not focusing on you when you are talking to them? I want you to ask yourself that question, because we're going to try to answer both of those things here. So if you've subscribed to this channel, then you know that I teach about skills of self-government on this channel, and I have multiple videos where I talk about the skill following instructions. I'm not going to go into all the detail here, but I am going to say that following instructions is the basic of all basic skills. If a child will not choose to follow instructions or cannot follow instructions from their parent, then the parent can't do any teaching, because that completely undermines the roles. Now, there are many parents who allow a child to not follow instructions, and then they wonder, why is my child so disrespectful? Why do I not feel a close bond with my child? And it's actually because they've thrown off the roles by allowing the child to be disrespectful sometimes. And this oftentimes is because of laziness on the part of the parent. The parent doesn't want to do the corrections and the teachings all of the time. It just takes a lot of time, if you think about it. So teaching your child to follow instructions, doing all 5 steps to that skill, start with the step look at the person, then it goes to keeping a calm face, voice, and body, and then there's the actual follow-through steps of the skill. But if you can teach them how to follow instructions, that will help them with the follow-through as well as the focus-in step. Now, if you think your child's not listening because they really aren't even looking at you, they're not paying any attention to what you're saying, they're in their own little world, it's not that they're not wanting to follow through. If they actually heard you, they might follow through, but they're not acting like they can even hear you or that they want to hear you. Well, then comes the first step of following instructions again, which is to look at the person. Now, both children and parents have a responsibility to follow through with this step. If you are going to correct your child for not looking at the person when you are giving them an instruction, don't you think you would be needing to look at them to even know if they actually were looking at you or not? The answer is yes. I was working with a lot of children who were neurodiverse, and these children oftentimes struggled wanting to look at people. Sometimes they even had a hard time with the action of looking at a person, because looking at a person would immediately make it so that they didn't focus. So we had to keep in mind what level of look at the person they could do, but regardless, they all needed that little bit of connection time so that they would remember to focus on what was being said, even if they were primarily an auditory processor. When you are talking with your children, that means that you have a responsibility as the parent to go to the child, look at the child when you're talking to them, and actually tell them, maybe instruct them, hey, Melissa, look at me. Remember, look at the person. Okay, you're doing a great job on that. Now I'm going to give you the instruction, right? So as part of the pre-teaching before an instruction, you get the child to look at you, you prepare them. Here comes an instruction. Now pay attention. The same could happen with a no answer. So I teach 4 basic skills of self-government. They are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. All 4 of the 4 basic skills start with the same step, which is to look at the person. This establishes connection, it establishes focus, and this is very important for every person as they are working together with each other, but especially if you have a person who has a hard time focusing in or listening and they get distracted easily, looking at the person is going to be the best way for them to actually be successful in their follow-through. All right, I'm going to share with you another skill. This is a pre-teaching skill. This skill actually is one of the things that sets teaching self-government apart from a lot of other parenting things out there. The principle of pre-teaching is powerful. When a person learns self-government, that means that they have decided ahead of time what they want out of a situation, an interaction, a relationship. They actually have a plan of where they're headed. So when you have a plan, that means you have initially instructed yourself or pre-taught yourself to go in a certain direction. Then in the moment, you might need to remind yourself of that plan. That's where pre-teaching comes in. So if you've talked to your children about calmness, good communication, and their relationships, then you should be able to remind them of that when you are doing a pre-teach. Now, the pre-teach does not come after an instruction. The pre-teach, as its name suggests, comes before an instruction or no answer or criticism or correction is given. When the child listens to that pre-teach, it should prepare them to be successful in connection and follow through with any of those skills. So a good pre-teach would begin by the parent looking at the child. Once you've established eye contact, then you tell them deliberately, I am going to give you a pre-teach. We're going to work on one of your skills before you get the chance to use that skill. The skill we're going to be working on is following instructions. Remember that when we follow instructions, we need to look at the person. Let's practice that right now. So then you would practice looking at each other. Then you would say, now remember, the other steps of following an instruction are, and you would list those steps for the child, and you would also work on those steps too. Then, as part of a really good pre-teach, then you would role play practice what this skill is supposed to be like. Children need to have more opportunities doing things the right way than the wrong way in order to choose the right way more often. This means the parents need to have positive interactions with their children more often than the negative interactions that usually include a correction. By the way, if you have followed this channel, you know a correction does not need to feel negative. In fact, it should not feel negative. So be sure to get additional insights there on that skill set as well. So anyway, you prepare them, you role play practice it. You may even switch roles if the child is a little bit older, where they're you and you're them. You practice those interactions and using that skill, following instructions or disagreeing appropriately, accepting no answers, whatever skill you're going to be using coming up. Then you ask for verbal recognition. So you ask your child, so now tell me, what are the steps to following an instruction? Your child should be able to tell you all of the steps to following instructions, all 5. Then you can praise them for that and say, okay, I think you're ready. You're going to do a great job at this instruction. I know it'll be new, a little bit different, but you've got this. So then at that point, they repeat back to you and you get them prepared for the real instruction. So then you're going to say for the real instruction, I need you to whatever it is, or maybe you'll have the no answer at that point. So at this point, you're going to remind the children, this will be the negative consequence if you choose not to follow the instruction. This will be the positive consequence if you choose to follow the instruction. And you'll give them a good rationale that touches the heart for why. You're going to want to keep your pre-teaching short, not super wordy, so that they don't start feeling annoyed by the fact that they have to have that conversation too much. Now, they could have a little bit of annoyance, but you don't let them push off your teaching. You've got to be able to do the teaching so that they are more successful and they see how much you care, but just don't lecture. So then after all of that, unless your child has oppositional defiant disorder or something like that, or extreme ADHD and they're always pushing against things, then 9 times out of 10, almost every time, they're going to follow through with whatever it is. You have prepared them. They are now in front brain. They see there's really no reason to push against this. And if they need to talk to you about it, they have that other skill. It's a teaching self-government skill that we teach on this channel. It's called disagreeing appropriately. And they'll be able to use that skill as well. Now, I have mentioned a lot of things here. We have just brushed the surface. So I would like to give you a little bit more information that can really help you, help them to listen to you. And that is my video. It's a full-length class that's here on the channel. It's called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. So click on the link to that video now, and you will be able to learn a lot more about the skills and principles of self-government that will help your child have the greatest opportunity for success at self-government.